Hi there, Vinny from Project Frugal. Today we're going to talk about KiwiSaver, what it is, whether you should have it, and whether or not it can help you. So stay tuned and let's check it out. KiwiSaver was an initiative by the New Zealand government and it started in early July 2007. So it's a voluntary savings scheme, and what you can do is you can contribute some money from your job. It goes in from ranges of 3%, 4%, 6%, 8%, or 10%, and your employer will match you at least 3%. So some employers can put more than that in, but generally most of them put 3% in. So for example, if you put $30 a week in, your employer will match your $30 and you'll be saving $60 a week into your KiwiSaver. There's a range of funds available, all sorts of funds from defensive through to defensive, conservative, balanced, etc., growth, and aggressive. I recommend aggressive because you're going to, over the long term, you're going to make the most returns. There's a few caveats with KiwiSaver. Basically, you can't get the money out until you reach the retirement age, and the retirement age currently in New Zealand is 65. The national government from a few years ago upped the retirement age to 67. So if you were born before, I think it was sometime in June 2000 and or sorry 1974, then it gradually creeps up to 67. So I'm older than that, so unfortunately, well, or maybe that's a good thing. So that means 65 is the cutoff time when basically I can get my money out of KiwiSaver if I choose to, because it's still optional at that point. So there's another way you can get your money out of KiwiSaver. That is if you're buying a first home. So if you contribute a minimum of 3 years to KiwiSaver and you're buying an existing home, you can get a KiwiSaver grant, home loan grant thing, or well, it's just a money that they give out, and they'll pay $1,000 per year for the first 3 years, up to a maximum of 5 years. So you can get $3,000 to $5,000. If you're doing a new build, it's basically double that. So it could be $6,000 to $10,000 that you can get as a money for a first home if you haven't purchased a home before. And that's in addition to withdrawing your funds that you've saved up in KiwiSaver, but you still have to leave at least $1,000 in there. So if you've saved up $20,000, you've been in KiwiSaver for 5 years, you're buying a new house, you could hypothetically have $30,000 plus any other savings that you've got to purchase a home. If you move overseas with your KiwiSaver and you permanently immigrate from New Zealand, you're entitled to all your money except the government contributions. So you have to be living overseas for at least 12 months before you can get your money out of it. Let's talk about government contributions. So if you put a minimum of $20.06, which equates to $1,042.86, as long as you put that in the calendar year being the 1st of July through to the 30th of June the following year, the government will match 50% of that up to that amount. So if you put in $20.06 a week, you'll have $1,042.86 roughly. The government will contribute $521.43 up to that amount per calendar year. So if you only put in $500 for that calendar year, the government will put in another $250. So it's a great incentive to save money through KiwiSaver, and as long as you're putting in that minimum, you'll get that match at the end of the year, or the government contribution rather. The next thing we'll talk about is your prescribed investor rate. So if you earn over, I think it's about $70,000, you'll be paying the higher tax rate for any monies earned over $70,000, which is currently 33%. With the prescribed investor rate, you would be paying a maximum of 28% tax on any money that you earn over and above that. So you can offset some of your tax by opting into funds which pay this, and that's a good incentive to not pay as much tax to the government, which is great. I'm actually in a different scheme which is called SSRSS, which stands for State Services Retirement Savings Scheme, and that's because I'm a government employee. and I got in before the cutoff, which was back in 2008, before they cut it off, and the only option after that was pretty much KiwiSaver after that, which means I can get my 3% match from my employer paid into that. The only real benefit of that scheme is if I retire from my current position and leave the state sector, I am entitled to get all the money out pretty much straight away. Whereas KiwiSaver, you're still locked into the age of 65 or possibly 67 when it gets to that time, unless you have hardship, you die, financial hardship that is, you die, or you maybe there's a couple other caveats in there somewhere, but pretty hard to get your money out if you're in KiwiSaver. But if you're in SSRSS, which I am, not so hard. So I put 3% into both of these things, which gets taken out of my salary, and I get the government match from the SSRSS. But if you're solely in KiwiSaver, you'll get the 3% match for KiwiSaver. Now we'll have a look at some useful websites. So the first one we're going to look at is the sorted web page. Links are down below in the description. This is a great thing to learn all about KiwiSaver, how it works, why it's worth joining, etc. As it says there, they've got videos, they've got some basic information on how to join, why you should join, benefits, etc., etc., and all about saving for a first home and retirement and choosing a fund, all sorts of stuff like that. That's a good site to go to and have a look around. They've also got some tools on their page, and they've got a KiwiSaver fund finder. So if we just go and have a quick look on that, essentially what they do is they list a whole bunch of funds. In this case, it's starting off with aggressive funds and looking at, well, 82 different providers of KiwiSaver funds in New Zealand currently. And it shows you basically the returns for each of them with the fees and services. These returns are listed after fees. Not sure about the tax on that, but that's another story. And you can see there's a whole raft of funds. So these ones are aggressive. If we change this to, let's have a look, and we'll just go for all funds. So you've got growth funds, balanced funds, aggressive funds, conservative funds, and defensive funds. If we go for all funds, and we've got returns highest first, so generally it's the growth and aggressive ones that do the best over the long term. So if we carry on scrolling down, it just keeps on going and going and going. As we get lower and lower, they'll eventually go into balanced, conservative, and the lowest probably paying one will probably be a defensive fund, but I'm not going to go down there. So the average return on all of these is 6.95, but if we just change this to aggressive, you'll see that the average bumps up markedly to 10.17%. So you can change your fund providers. It normally takes 10 to 35 days to change funds. I'm just sticking with the one that I've got. We'll have a look at my particular KiwiSaver fund. This has been going since May 2019, and there's a reason why I didn't start it earlier, and one of the reasons was I was trying to get out of debt before I started investing, and then once I'd got out of debt, then was the time to start investing into this. So I put a 3% match into this. There's no employer match because it's with my other SSRSS portfolio. You can see there we've got almost $11,500. Now today is the 28th of August, but the balance will be slightly delayed, and we're going back to the 20th of August. So they update this every couple of weeks or so, and it'll be kind of a backwards balance, if you like, where it's not actually correctly up to date, but when the money goes in, because it gets stuck with IOD for a wee while, they take their cut out. Thanks very much. And yeah, it'll basically go up. So if we have a look at the details on that, here's a chart. This is basically showing when I started back in May 2019. You can see that it's generally it's gone up all the way there, and at the moment to get to my $1,042.86, I am 42.09% of the way there, and I've got 10 months to get the money up to $1,042.86, which is fine. It's gonna be no problem doing that. So as long as you put in at least $20 a week, what you could do if you were self-employed or something like that, start it up as soon as you can. Just make sure you've got $1,042.86 before 30th of June of the next year, or if it's in this year possibly, so you can get the maximum government match. Now if you do happen to move overseas, you won't get the government contributions, so they'll probably take that off you and say thanks very much, thanks for putting the money in, but we're taking it off you. But on a positive note, if we have a look at this particular one, which performs above average, I wouldn't say it's the top one. According to this, the average return is 13.22% per annum, and this year's been a bit not quite as good as last year, 11.54%. But 13.22% is a good return, and even though we can't get the money out. So originally on this, I was in a balanced fund, I think it was, or whatever the default is you get for this. After doing a bit of research, I decided to change it to growth, and the balance has improved markedly since that. So I think if we look at this graph here, I think I'm just going to say I was probably in some sort of defensive or whatever the basic one was, until I changed it to growth, which is the highest one for this particular one. They don't have a aggressive fund, as you say. So we'll have a look at the performance chart on this. You can see here when I started, 31st of May, before it does take a wee while before the money comes through, because it goes through IRD and then they sort of pay it through to the fund provider. Comes from your employer through to IRD, then it comes through to your fund provider sort of in the next few weeks sort of thing. So there is a bit of a delay on the updates on this. But we can see when we started, this is when COVID hit in New Zealand, and at that point I was down 6%. And then once the COVID recovery started, it's been sort of mainly up or down, but pretty impressive really. I mean, 30.89%. I don't know what these numbers here are sort of based on, but oh, that's since I've joined by the looks of it. So 30.89% is my overall return, but the average annual return is 13.22% since I started, as I said before. Plenty of reasons to join KiwiSaver. So you get the 50% government contribution as long as you put the minimum of $1,042.86 in, receiving another $521, which is essentially $10 a week free money. You get that. You get the the employer match of 3%, which is a bonus. You chuck in $100, they chuck in $100, plus you get another X amount from the government. So you're more than doubling your money by doing this. Downsides, of course, you can't get the money out till you're 65, but doesn't really matter. We're all going to get to 65 unless we die or something horrible happens. So you're better off just doing this. Cons are definitely that you can't get the money out early unless you're buying a new home or an existing home as a first home buyer. But it is a great way of saving extra money. If you're lucky enough to get the pension, you can top up your income with some KiwiSaver funds. And when you do turn 65 or 67, if you're too young, you can always take the money out and reinvest it into something else if you want. So I hope you enjoyed this video, hope it's been useful, and we'll catch you in the next video. See you later, bye.